I'm really lucky that I've been able to work with so many great people who have informed and shaped me, people with me behind the camera, but also people in front of the camera as well.
Sure. And so you said there's a lot of people here in the Twin Cities that have influenced you. How strong is the Twin Cities filmmaking media field, industry?
It's a good question. I mean, clearly in the broadcast realm, Minneapolis and St. Paul, the network affiliates had always been kind of regarded as the farm teams for the network news. In the days before cable, when that really, really meant something, and it still does, but there was already that kind of media culture early on in the Twin Cities. And likewise in the independent film world, there's been, a lot of success stories, and we all know of many of them. What we know less of is some of the hard work behind the scenes at organizations like Independent Feature Project or IFP, the Film Board, a lot of individuals like Jane Minton and Craig Rice and Dan Sartorius and many others who behind the scenes have tried to kind of build up this kind of human resource, this infrastructure that makes Minnesota a real attractive place for Hollywood to make movies, but also brings up talent like myself and a lot of people here at SPNN who then get opportunities in media. But I also am very proud that Twin Cities Public Television is clearly one of the nation's best local producing public TV station. I'll say that to WGBH and NET and the others to their faces. But yeah, I mean, on a number of fronts, we really have innovated and lived up to the mission of public television. Part of the reason I've been there so long is I really believe in that, and I think we really have. And in the last few years, with the advent of digital broadcasting, we've really used that spectrum, the digital channels, and the Minnesota channel in particular, to really extend our mission, to broaden our content, including a lot of work produced in the community and cable access media realms. So yeah, we do great work.
Can you talk a little bit more about the Minnesota channel? What channel would we find that at, and what would we find on that channel?
Well, you'll find a lot of amazing local content, and the basic idea is we collaborate with local organizations, nonprofits, often colleges and universities, a lot of advocacy organizations, and kind of share in the work of creating programming, Emmy Award-winning programming, but programming that really comes from the community. So it's been a really exciting few years, and a lot of my leadership who created this idea, even at the time, some people wondered, but it's now clearly been proven to be a real innovation in Minnesota broadcasting. And so, boy, you see any number of programs on any given night on the Minnesota channel. A couple of programs that I've been involved with that, and some of the subject matter that we're focusing on are disparities in the community, a lot of the challenges that our communities statewide and locally are facing. We've looked at issues regarding homeless youth, and again, trying to, in the way Gordon Parks would be, I think, proud, trying to do it in a way that's respectful, that respects people and their stories. And I think that shows then in the final product, in the program. Any number of, on any given night, you get a whole range of content. And what's great, again, is it really is coming from the community. We have some editorial shaping, but we do it in collaboration.
Oh, wonderful. If you're just joining us, we are on St. Paul Forum today, talking with Daniel Pierce Bergin, senior producer at Twin Cities Public Television, about the role of community building in media. And we actually have a few clips, two clips that you've brought today with us. Could you set up the first one? It's about the history of St. Paul.
That's right. One of the great joys in my work is history documentaries. And of course, it's kind of a staple for public broadcasting, but it's, in addition to PBS and Ken Burns, TPT really tries whenever we can, because this is the expensive thing to produce. And so when we get the opportunity with a lot of our great funders to tell the history of Minnesota, it's always exciting, and I've been really lucky to be able to produce a couple of these programs.
And especially the Black history of Minnesota and the history of other cultures as
Absolutely, this is a key. I mean, frankly, this was something, there was history programming and content in books and curriculum about Minnesota. What was lacking, and still is largely, is the diverse history of Minnesota. For our part, and some of our collaborators and funders, we wanted to create something that would live in the classrooms as kind of a media curriculum and toolkit that not only would help school children and students, but also could be a staff development tool for staff to have a better sense of the diverse history so they can work with their diverse students.
Wonderful.
So we produced a 2-hour documentary that premiered about 5 years ago, and since then I hope has really found its way into the community, into classrooms. One of the stories, one of the dozen stories we tell, is really a great origin story. And I'm one who always loves origins, whether it's comic books or historic figures. How did we get to where we are and who we are? And so in this case, and I'm kind of looking over at the riverfront here and the levee on the monitor, because that's really the place where this story kind of comes to St. Paul. And this is the story of the origins of Pilgrim Baptist Church. And what we're going to see is, in the throes of Civil War, a band of contraband or freed slaves kind of get on a raft and start heading out on the Mississippi and ultimately get towed to St. Paul by a steamer. And ultimately, after that, establish one of the state's first African-American churches, Pilgrim Baptist Church.
Great. So what's the name of this clip?
This is Pilgrim's Progress, and it's from North Star, Minnesota's Black Pioneers.
Great.
He was the first licensed preacher by the state of Minnesota, the first black man able to bear you, to marry you, to do all of those official duties, and it was recognized by the state. Too many times, I think, when we're looking back at people in history, we want to elevate them, give them heroic status. But I think Reverend Hickman, if you can imagine, to be able to stand in your own congregation in 1877 in St. Paul, Minnesota, in front of your own church, a licensed minister, how that had to have felt. Now, when I look at the picture of him up that stained glass, he earned that. There's stripes on his back. I mean, he earned it. It's just amazing.
From a symbol of freedom for former slaves, as a center of early activism, to the heights of the civil rights movement, the story of Pilgrim Baptist Church symbolizes the story of St. Paul's black community. John Hickman was proud of his father, Reverend Robert Hickman, and the other black settlers of St. Paul. A year before his death, John and other former slaves were interviewed by the WPA.
His health is failing, but he vividly recalls the events which prompted the pilgrimage. Upon reflection of his boyhood days, his face brightens, but he soon lapses into silence, retiring with the memories which are so sacred to him alone.
That is available as we speak?
It is. It's available online. We broadcast it with some regularity since its premiere 5 years ago. It's being used in a number of forms, and that's one of the things that we're really looking at now, is going beyond broadcast. And there's nothing like the power of being able to kind of reach into people's homes, and so we're kind of fortunate to do that, and we really take that seriously at TPT. But in the case of North Star, it was really the beginning of our effort to really create media that could be used in different ways, and with new media, with the different venues and platforms that media exists on now. We're trying to really position this kind of content, this important local diverse history, so that it can be used in the classroom and in other ways. So even something as simple as a chapter DVD, and there are a lot of them of North Star around in the community, where an educator can jump right to the segment if they're interested in the faith, community, and history. They can access that directly, instead of in the old days when we were in school, queuing up a VHS or threading up a 60mm projector.
Going to the library and getting it actually on microfiche or something.
Yeah. So we're continuing to try and innovate and experiment with our content so that it's more useful. And a lot of that's web-based, but we're hoping to go beyond that as well.